Hi there, and welcome to the B-Roll podcast.
I'm Justin,
And I'm William.
and on this episode of the podcast, we're going to be talking about Doctor Who. Alright, so let's start. This is a big topic between me and you, and it's a topic that's probably quite current as well out there in the internet world. The current state of Doctor Who. What's your feelings, William?
Well, things are getting a bit confusing with it because we see things on the internet with some people saying it's dead. Then we see other things with the things some people reporting that the BBC have said it's making lots of money, etc., etc. And
So it is very confusing, as you say,
Yep.
and there seems to be a lot of, maybe there is misinformation, might be the right word to use,
Yep.
about the actual show, whether the Disney are going to pull out, whether Disney are staying, the fact that it costs so much money.
and whether Russell's been sacked or not. And
So let's wind back a bit. So this all started after we had just finished the new first series that Russell had produced since coming back as showrunner. He came back into play as the showrunner. We had the new series, and then after the new series, we got all the stuff that with Disney and all this deal. The new series is shown, and something happened that made people start to think that we're not going to get more of this, and Disney aren't happy. Now, what happened, William, with the new series? What caused this sudden shift from everyone? Not just the actual stuff that they put in the new series, but there was something that was not very high out there that caused a lot of people to think that this is really tanking. It's the ratings. It
Yes.
got the lowest ratings of any new Doctor
Yep.
Who series since whenever. It was lower than Jodie Whittaker's era, and it was lower than, I think, the lowest rated Doctor Who story prior to that. Very low. I think that is where everyone who's wanted to make something of what's going on with Doctor Who would come out and start saying it's finished, Disney aren't happy, it's not doing well. And probably some of that's true, but I don't think that's the main problem with the current series of Doctor Who. I don't think it's just the ratings. I think it's the direction that Russell's taken it in that's caused these people to bring out rumours and start moaning about it.
I know, like he's sort of basically kind of gone back to the drawing board in a way, and he sort of recreated the whole concept for a new audience.
Well, we heard rumours, didn't we, when we looked online, that he was aiming it for the 20 to 30 year olds. I believe that's the age group that he was trying to pick up for the new series. And I don't know if it's just me or you yourself feel that it didn't really hit that mark either. It didn't really seem to appeal. And we're both not in that age group, but I don't think it appealed to 20 and 30 year olds at all.
No,
I don't think
it did.
I don't think it had that appeal for them. So already I feel that is a problem with the show, that they didn't have an appeal there. But coming back to what we started out talking about is basically all these rumours about whether the Disney are pulling out or whether the BBC. None of them can be verified. So really,
I know.
our own point of view, me and Williams, on this is that wait until there's a proper official statement, because everyone is making up their own stories for this, and I don't believe any of them are really correct until we know for sure.
I know, like some people seem to think that the budget for this season was about 100 million.
Which doesn't seem plausible, because if you look at, say, shows like Game of Thrones, which were in that 100 million budget, the new series of Doctor Who did not look in that kind of budget range. It looked like maybe a third of that. I'd say that Doctor Who's probably sitting at about 2 to 2.5 million budget for each episode. I don't know if that's in dollars or pounds, but whatever it is, it would only be maybe a quarter of the budget of, say, something like Game of Thrones. So it's definitely not $100 million. So that figure floating around is already originally was debunked, I believe, by Russell, who said that they didn't have that kind of money. But I noticed that even recent articles that have been released out there again are quoting that number. So they obviously haven't fact checked to see if that number's correct, and they're just putting it there.
I know, and a lot of the other shows that that are in the higher budget range have far more visual effects than what Doctor Who's had in the past year, and also they have rather successful, well-known actors in them, whereas Doctor Who's hardly had any.
It hasn't had much at all. So myself and William, we both feel that the biggest downfall for this current season, other than all these articles saying that Disney are upset and they've had all this money and we don't believe they've had all this money, is more actually the writing of the series. I feel was lackluster. It wasn't a strong written new series of Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
I think they didn't spend enough time refining the scripts, and from what we've heard too, the new Doctor, Ncuti Gatwa, wasn't available for several episodes anyway.
I know, that's why
which-
he's missing for
A
Sounds
couple
like-
of stories,
Yep.
yeah. Which made it really quite silly, having a new Doctor and then not having that new Doctor in
I
some
know.
stories makes the whole thing feel less. So our general opinion is that the way they're going with it is not good, and we're hoping that they come with a better direction with it.
Mhm. And a lot of the stories that they've had is, most of the stories don't have any feel of what Doctor Who actually is and was.
They've definitely gone for the more flashy, over-the-top type storylines and less concentrating on strong storylines and character building, and we don't get that enough nowadays with the new
I
series.
know.
I think also it's very sad that we have to hear about adventures that they've had, but we don't get to see those on the screen. They talk a lot often about this adventure we went on with the companion, but they only tell us in passing, but we miss out on that adventure, and that would have helped build the characters up more. And I think that's another problem with the new series, is a lack of actual strong time spent just building the characters up.
And also because, like, he's trying to introduce it to a new audience, he's been kind of rehashing large chunks of scenes from his
First go
this goes direct, back in 2005.
as the showrunner originally, yeah. And we've noticed, both of us have noticed, that some of the stuff is pretty much lifted word for word from earlier seasons that he's done.
Yep.
And that doesn't really make it good, because obviously it's not just going to be new people watching. You've got a lot of older people who want to watch the show that watched it before, and they're finding, well, we've had this, it's the same stuff again.
And also, even back in 2000, when he originally brought it back in 2005, like, not just with the Doctor and Rose, but also all the other, recurring characters, like, Rose's mum and Rose's dad and that. We got backstories and all that about them. But with the new series, you just know the characters are there, but you don't really get a story about them, so you don't really feel for them.
No, they're just there to be characters, but they're not given a real full character story. And I think that's what we've also noticed with this current series, is that they haven't spent the time to build up those characters. Another thing that I remember now too that annoyed me a lot from seeing this new series was that they opened the season with a really bad story. I felt Space Babies was a story that probably shouldn't have even been made for Doctor Who.
Nah.
I really feel that it was probably one of the worst written scripts I've ever seen on television for Doctor Who in a long time. It wasn't a strong story. It felt like a mini story, or just a little Christmassy children in need type special episode thing. It didn't feel like it should have been given a full episode. It didn't have enough material in it to really stretch it to a full. You could see that the way it was written.
Yep.
So we started with a very, very, very average story this season. We followed it by a musical number, which was fine, but could have probably been held over for, say, Christmas, which would have been better. Then we got a story that was written for a previous Doctor by Stephen Moffat, was actually written, I believe, for maybe Matt Smith, and didn't actually get filmed.
Yep.
So that also didn't feel right because you could almost tell the dialogue wasn't written for the new Doctor because it didn't quite fit what we were getting from the new Doctor. Then we got another Doctor Light story,
Yep.
the 73 Yards,
Yep.
which again didn't have enough of the Doctor in it. The story
know.
was fine, but it felt too soon to not have the Doctor at all in this new season. We're just starting to get to know him. Then we were followed on by that Dot and
Dot and Bubble.
Bubble,
And I think it was also
pretty
a
much a
story written for Matt Smith originally.
I think it was another reused script, and was very, very average. And then finally we come to the end of the season, or just before the end of the season, we had another story actually I forgot about, which was the Bridgerton Rogue story.
Yep.
And that on its own also felt very average and really was